Aerodrome holders have received some really good news today because Coinbase has made an amazing announcement that is going to massively impact the chart price or the chart movement over the coming weeks, months, and years, as a key piece of liquidity coming from institutions has been unlocked via Coinbase. So this is of course massive news, and this is going to be really interesting to see how this develops over the coming, as I mentioned, days, months, weeks, years, because we can see that we've already seen an incredibly strong structural move from Aerodrome on the chart, and it's doing things from a fundamental perspective that I think really make a lot of sense within crypto. And so I do think it probably will draw the attention of institutions. And so I want to talk about all of that. We will take a look at the chart here in a couple of minutes just so we can kind of see exactly what I'm talking about. But first off, I want to show you the announcement itself. We can see here Aerodrome announcing that institutional grade trading and custody of Aero is now available via Coinbase Insto, enabling a secure, compliant solution to investors at scale. So you can see here Coinbase Prime. This is essentially kind of like the institutional piece of Coinbase, and Aerodrome is now tradable within this. This is of course massive news in my opinion, because this opens Aerodrome to an entirely new profile of customer, and this is of course going to be a huge thing because as institutions get in, the price movement of course becomes a lot more reasonable. We also see kind of some moves being made based on actual fundamentals. In my opinion, the fundamentals of Aerodrome are looking really nice. Of course, not up at the levels that we have seen from kind of other entrenched competitors, but just given kind of the scaling up that we have seen from Aerodrome over the past several months, really has been truly impressive. And so we actually have kind of a little bit of a high level review of this here, and I'll actually just go straight into kind of the screenshot that we have here. And we can see obviously 7-day volume really looking nice, keeping up with some of the very largest players in the space, slightly off of what we're seeing out of Radium, close-ish to what we're seeing, about 20% less, but close-ish to what we're seeing out of Hyperliquid. Keep in mind, Hyperliquid is like 15 times the size of Aerodrome. We're seeing it similar to Orca. Again, slightly less than Meteora, higher than PumpSwap. We're seeing much higher than Curve, and then of course like massively higher than Cetus. So also if we look at coins and pairs, the number of coins is quite low, but the pairs are comparable to kind of everything except like Radium and PumpSwap, but that's also because they're trading kind of like the lower quality meme coins and things that oftentimes don't even get out of kind of the very initial phases there. So you can see though, really interesting. Also the number of users. Look at the volume that they're doing with such a small number of users. This, in my opinion, is very interesting to see. And we can see based off of the 30-day volume, again, kind of moving larger out than the 7-day, it's actually above Hyperliquid. It's just barely off of Radium. And then, of course, a decent ways behind Uniswap and PancakeSwap. But definitely kind of moving in that direction from what we can see. However, we can see kind of what I would consider the main drawback or main weakness of what we're seeing out of Aerodrome is there hasn't really been a bunch of TVL actually locked in Aerodrome quite yet. You can see this is actually kind of one of the, it's underperforming quite handily, other than like, let's say Orca and PumpSwap and Cetus. It's basically the bottom of the list here. Like 10x to go, and we just barely pass Uniswap at that point. About a 3.5 to 4x off of PancakeSwap, about a 4x off of Radium as well. So that is something that we would need to see, hopefully change over time, is see the TVL increase. But as you can see, the volume itself, they're doing incredibly huge volume numbers, which I think is really good to see. And I think honestly, this starts to, like, if we move over into the chart, we can kind of see exactly this, right? I mean, obviously we had this like major pump, and then we saw this really kind of punishing dip that actually kind of bottomed out in early April. But if you look at what we've seen since early April, I'll kind of do a little bit of a zooming in specifically on kind of this last piece. I mean, look at this. I mean, this could not be a more like structurally or technically sound move. Higher highs and higher lows all the way up. Even right here, you can see it's appearing that we have put in kind of a nice bit of a higher low in here. Now, of course, we did see a really strong move to the upside. This is all kind of market manipulation. We'll be talking about that here in a second as we go and we review Ethereum and Bitcoin. But we can see here, even still looking like we are putting in a much higher low than what we saw back in here. The higher low that we saw here was about 72 cents. Here is about just over $1, kind of in the $1 range. So if we can continue to hold this higher low, this again, it looks like incredibly textbook. I think this is the thing that institutions, that large buyers would be exactly looking to see with you when you couple it with the fact that it's a top 4 exchange in terms of 30-day volume. And if you look at the prices that you'd be paying for these types of exchanges, it's going to be a decent bit more, right? I mean, so that's the interesting thing about what we're seeing with Aerodrome. And the fees, of course, off of this type of volume is going to be great. So this is going to be a very profitable protocol from what we are seeing based off of the volume numbers. So, and again, we're just getting started with Base, right? Aerodrome is kind of like they're like the DEX on Base, and Coinbase has only just barely started unlocking their users to the Base ecosystem natively within the Coinbase app. So this is another piece that's going to be massively important as we kind of start to consider where kind of the ceiling could be for Aerodrome. In my opinion, that's kind of one of the major things that I'm paying attention to. So overall, you can see the chart looking really nice. We're seeing that kind of like the curve up from hopefully a higher low. Of course, it is the market, so anything can happen. There are no guarantees, but at least from what we've seen right now, this is again continuing that really nice and strong structural move. Now let's go ahead and take a quick look at what we're seeing out of Ethereum and Bitcoin. Pretty wild moves happening over the past little while here. We can see this is the Ethereum chart. We can see I'll go off of daily into hourly. We could see really nice move up and then just an immediate dump down here, which I think is kind of interesting. This is something that again I've been telling you guys for weeks now. I am not looking to trade. What are we trading here? We don't know, right? I mean, this is pure chop. This is pure volatility. If anything, we could have seen that there was going to be a fairly strong level of resistance here, and we could have taken the short and then kind of played this exact move that we are seeing. Now again, however, if we are looking to play the ranges, we'll actually get onto the hourly from this perspective. We can see here, unless we do kind of break this structural support that we have seen, we are kind of at the bottom and we could potentially be looking to see a bounce. Just like if we would have seen here, we had basically gotten exactly to the top and then seen a massive dump. So again, in my opinion, this looks like a lot of manipulation to me. This is what you get in markets like this. If you are looking to go long, this would potentially be a good place to do it, because again, we've really just kind of tapped the bottom of this kind of structural low right here. You can already see the wick up starting to maybe form, but again, it is an open wick, so things can change very quickly. But that is just kind of something that we're looking at right now. If you look at Bitcoin, we will see basically the exact same thing, the exact same type of move. Oh, hey, what do you know? Looks like we tried to come up. We tried to kind of, go retest, bounce off. It was looking nice, but then again, lots of manipulation coming. If we go back to the daily, you'll see kind of exactly that. Again, I like to look at the daily candles to confirm, kind of closes outside of structure. It looked like we might have been heading in that direction, getting outside of this descending channel that has been kind of forming. Aside from some of the false breakouts that we've seen here, we're looking to try and get some momentum. Obviously, have not seen that momentum. Definitely, again, manipulation is what this looks like to me, particularly where you look at it where it looks like we see a break, we see the close at a lower time frame, we kind of see that bounce back to the trend line, comes right back off. That looks good from a lower time frame, right? But then if you consider the manipulation factor, well then of course you happen to see something like this. So a pretty interesting move over a very short period of time, but again, potentially looking to see like we have gotten a wick here and we might be starting to see a bounce on the bottom. But again, you just never know. There's so much manipulation going on in this market here. You never really truly can tell, and who knows if this really truly is the bottom, because as we can see for Ethereum, it does look like we may be at a pretty nice structural bottom. But for Bitcoin here, we're not really seeing that, right? I mean, we're just kind of dumping right back into this descending channel. Where the bottom is, yes, it could have been here. We did actually kind of touch the bottom here. Could we continue to sell off and get all the way back down to like the 109K range? Possibly. I mean, if we start to put a trend line here, you can see this has been a key level of support as well as a key level of resistance multiple times in the past. So overall, we are seeing a lot of manipulation. kind of trailing off in a way from the topic of today's video, which is Aerodrome. But I think it's just important to understand here that there still is manipulation. So even with things like Aerodrome, where we're seeing these really nice, kind of structural things going on, if we bring this back down to the hourly, you'll see the exact same thing happened here today with Aerodrome. So, oops, let me readjust this. But you can see the exact same type of thing, right? I mean, we saw a really strong move. It was looking like we broke through this level of resistance here. You can see it had been a pretty strong level of resistance, rejected here, rejected multiple times here, rejected over here. It looked like we were maybe going to have a false breakout. You can see we had the level of support prior. So it looked like we were going to break out. We saw the candle close. We saw this kind of indecision candle. And then, of course, boom, a major dump here. So you always have to be careful. But then again, kind of looking, are we at a bottom? Maybe. Who knows? We have seen this kind of be a point of resistance in the past. This has been kind of an indecision point as well as a point of support. So, potentially this is the bottom. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. But hopefully you can see in this type of market, unless you're trading like a strong structure, it's really hard to get into something like this and feel comfortable, right? Even on the hourly, you could see there was kind of a Bollinger Band and RSI convergence kind of indicate we didn't actually see it close outside of the Bollinger Band. So that's kind of the key difference here. But it was getting towards the point showing us it was potentially overbought and that maybe it would be a good time to sell. Just like when we saw here, this actually did have kind of that the convergence, and then we did see a pretty strong sell-off. So, but again, this type of move looking purely manipulated to me. Again, I don't know. This is just my opinion. But then also if we take a look at the FedWatch, I think a lot of it is because you can see virtually 100% guarantee of a rate cut based on a lot of the news that was coming in today. And so this is of course good for altcoins like Aerodrome, especially good for Aerodrome in the sense that as people become more risk on, people are going to go more on chain, right? Well, who goes more on chain? Retail will generally kind of transition on chain because most people who are already in crypto are most likely already on chain. Whereas a lot of retail, Coinbase. What does Coinbase have? Base. Who basically runs Base? Aerodrome, right? So, I mean, it's a pretty clear, in my mind at least, it's a pretty clear kind of indication of when we start to see these rate cuts. Yes, it is good for crypto in total, but it is very good for Aerodrome. So we can see here almost a 12% chance of a 50 basis point rate cut rather than just a 25 point basis point cut. So interesting things going on here. If you are interested in kind of trading some of this stuff, again, you have to be very, very careful with manipulation, and you need to be very careful with just making sure that you're staying safe. But you can see here, we actually do have an Athena trade open. We've had this trade open for a little while. Again, also kind of falling victim to some of the manipulation here, but again, potentially finding another bottom. You can see we're up about 100% on the trade currently. So doing relatively well, but of course, it's not over until it's over, and so we'll see kind of what happens here. This one will just be kind of tracking over time. So if you are interested, of course, I do have those links in the description below. As you can see, just barely, I was using Weex, but I also have links to BloFin as well as BTCC. BTCC does have that really fantastic 10% bonus on first-time deposits. So if you are interested, feel free to check it out. But overall, that's kind of where we're at. Again, with all of this kind of economic data coming in, with the rate cuts, with people trying to decide if it's priced in or not, there is going to be a lot of manipulation. There is going to be a lot of kind of unusual moves. So just make sure that you're trading the structural levels, trade the supports, trade the resistances. Don't trade, I think it's going to go up or down. Of course, this is not financial advice. This is just my opinion and my experience from how I have both made and lost a lot of money. So, hopefully I can help you with some of that experience there. So, overall, hopefully you found the information in this video useful. If you did, of course, a like and a subscribe does help. You also can drop any comments if you have any questions, anything that you find interesting about some of these recent moves in the market. Do you kind of agree with me on my general thesis for Aerodrome? I'd be interested to know. Drop those in the comment section as well. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.